Welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate that. Back to my Walking Dead recaps. So, non-spoiler recap, stuff happened and there was a zombie. Now to get back into the spoiler parts of stuff. Starts out with, God, I actually totally forgot to take notes at the beginning of this. Let's see, I think it started out with, I can't remember if it started with Carl and Jesus on the... No, it totally didn't. It started out with Rick and Aaron. They're out foraging. Michonne is whistling, and in another part, whistling to attract some walkers, dispatches them quite quickly, and then just starts dragging one off. And we're like, huh, that's odd. That's not good. Yeah, that's what happens. And then we got to everything with Carl and Jesus as they're on their little way towards the Saviors. Forgot a beverage. Okay, so Carl ends up getting the drop on some of the Saviors after tricking Jesus into jumping out of the van first, because Jesus starts marking their way by just dumping out, I think it was maple syrup or something like that, just to try to like draw a little path so that Jesus can find his way back and all that kind of stuff. And then he's like, "Hey Carl, I think we're almost there." So then Carl's like, "Okay, you jump out first and then I'll be right behind you." And Jesus is like, "Okay, sounds like a plan." Jumps, and then Carl just waves at him. Carl 1, Jesus 0. So, Carl gets the drop on some of the Saviors, grabs a gun, shoots 2 of them before he is finally ultimately restrained, and then we just get, throughout the episode, we get a tour of the Saviors' compound. Still don't know where this is. It's obviously in driving distance from Alexandria, but we don't really know where. One of the big things that Negan focuses on throughout this entire thing is just showing Carl that Negan has respect. The respect of all of the people in this compound. And they are willing to do anything for him. Excuse me. To the point where, you know, when Negan first walks in to address all of the rest of the Saviors, he calls this meeting, and they all come in, and as soon as he walks into this room, they all just immediately, instinctively drop to their knees. And he gives a little bit of a speech, nothing major. And then he turns around, turns to Carl, and he's like, "See that? They're still kneeling." And he finally says, "As you were." And then they all scurry about and do all of their little menial tasks again. Negan then starts showing Carl around, showing him all of his wives and everything that he's got, and ends up realizing that one of his wives has been unfaithful. A gal named Amber is somehow... They don't really explain who this Mark is, if he was like previously with Amber or what. You kind of assume so. Especially just based off of the way that Negan's acted in the past with Dwight and his former wife, or current wife, whatever. I don't know how these relationships work. I don't know if you have to actually get a divorce or an annulment before Negan marries you. I don't know. They're a little bit fuzzy on some of the particulars of all of this. So Negan ends up telling Dwight to fire up the furnaces. And that's just not a good sign. And Dwight, obviously, he's already been burned and scarred. So Rick and Aaron are out looking for stuff. And Rick realizes that he has a day. He has a day to come up with something. And the last time when Negan left, he said it had to be something interesting. Something better than just a mysterious gun. So Rick knows that he needs to come up with something good to try to keep everybody else at Alexandria safe. So he's panicky a little bit. Because one thing you've gotten from Negan is he doesn't really seem to be the kind of guy who, he doesn't like to be disappointed. Just leave it at that. So then we start cutting to some of the other people from Alexandria. Rosita and Eugene start heading out. Rosita wants her bullet. Eugene promised he would make her a bullet. She asked him, and he said that he would make her one. Father Gabriel is going out with Spencer, and they're in a car ride. They're in a car together. And Spencer ends up asking the priest if it's a sin to hate somebody, and goes on to confess that he hates Rick. And you kind of feel for him. You kind of feel bad for him because, I mean, realistically, Spencer has lost everything, and right or wrong, he blames this exclusively on Rick. You know, in Spencer's eyes, it's like Rick showed up, and then his father died, and his brother died, and his mom died, and, you know, everything happened right after Rick showed up. Not necessarily saying that, you know, I don't necessarily think that Rick... Some bad stuff would have happened to Alexandria eventually anyway. Something would have happened. But from Spencer's perspective, it looks like everything bad really started to happen as soon as Rick showed up. So I get it. I get the negativity, and I get the hostility, and I get it. I totally understand it. Because it's one of those things where, you know, I can understand it, but I can't really empathize with it because I've never had anything like that happen to me. I've never, you know, I haven't lost my whole world, and I can blame it exclusively on, well, this guy showed up and then everything bad happened. So, but I can understand his point. I can understand where he's coming from with that. So anyway, Carl is back to the Savior compound. Negan is taking Carl around, and he's showing him around and all this stuff. And then at one point, this was kind of an interesting scene to me, this whole sequence. Negan wants Carl to take off his bandage to see the eye thing. So eventually Carl complies, and he takes the bandage off. And then Negan starts being Negan again, and mocks it, tells him how disgusting it is, it's gross as shit, and just all this other stuff like that. And for really the first time, you can see that Carl this is really getting to him, and you also really for the first time see that Negan says words to the effect of, "Oh my god, dude, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you feel this bad. I did not." So we see what the iron meant. Mark, the dude who's mentioned previously, he's strapped down to a chair. He had some kind of relationship with Amber, one of Negan's other wives, so he gets an iron to the face, pees himself, and Negan tells Daryl to mop that stuff up and get it out of the way. Then he takes Carl, tells him that he's taking Carl back home, tells Daryl that, you know, Carl's homesick, so we're going to go for a little car ride. And he's just so creepy. There's just something so unbelievably creepy about him in general. So we cut back to Spencer, who's out in the forest, because Gabriel, after their little talk, Gabriel decides, you know what, he flat out says, I'm just going to walk back home. Just, you think about everything. Think about everything with Rick. Rick is the devil in your eyes, but how many people has he actually saved? How many people has he kept safe? How many things has Rick actually done that are good that you're not even considering? So we find Spencer, who's still walking in the woods, and he comes upon a hunter who's up in one of those little, oh my gosh, I can't even think of what it's called. It's like a tree stand thing up higher in a tree, and he's just standing there. He's got his bow, he's got all of his stuff. Of course, at this point, he's dead, so he's zombified now. And Spencer ends up getting, like throwing up a rope or something like that, pulls down the bow, finds a map on this guy where he's buried a whole whack of supplies. So Spencer's got stuff. He's content. He's found some stuff. We cut back to Rosita and Eugene. They are in that factory where Eugene told Abraham that I can make bullets. I could make some bullets. Bullets are going to become the currency of the land. So Rosita's finally like, okay, you promised me you'd make me a bullet, make one, and then just says some unbelievably harsh stuff to him.
It actually reminded me a lot of something that Abraham had said to Eugene before Abraham ended up finally telling Eugene, like, you know what, you do have some useful skills and you have proven yourself. Rosita, she's still just seeing red right now. She is looking at this whole situation, and she just sees Negan as he needs to be taken out no matter the cost. She wants the one bullet for Negan specifically because he deserves to suffer for what he did. So Eugene ultimately does decide to make the bullet for her. So we're back with Carl and Negan after the whole iron thing to Mark, and Carl ends up saying that he wants to wrap his eye up, he wants to cover his face up again. Negan won't let him. I totally jumped ahead a little bit. It's after this point. It's after Carl asks to cover his eye again. Wow, this is really disorganized. Sorry about that. Sometime after that is when Negan ends up saying that he's taking Carl back to Alexandria. So then they all hop in their little trucks, their transports, and all that stuff. And they start heading back. Michonne, we finally find out what she was doing. That one walker the two walkers from the beginning. She's been at this for a little while. She's actually got a fairly good pile of walkers now. She's dragged them all into the road to block the progress from the Saviors coming back to Alexandria, and she waits. So she sees this female Savior. I can't remember if we've met her before. I know we have, but I just cannot think of her name for the life of me. I cannot remember it. So Michonne finally grabs her, and she basically forces her. She's like, okay, take me to Negan. Take me over there. Then we end up catching up with Negan and Carl. They're back in Alexandria now. Negan is just being a jerk. Just being absolutely horribly rude. Ends up finding Olivia, and Olivia is larger. Olivia ends up saying something about like everybody here is starving to death, and Negan's like, really, you're starving to death? And then he can tell that he's hurt her feelings, and again, this is the second time that we actually end up seeing Negan act remorseful for something that he said. Ends up going on to say absolutely more just horrible stuff, but at least for an instant you almost get a glimmer that he actually is a person who actually does have real feelings, which is kind of a change in pace for him, I guess. Anyway, Olivia ends up saying that, Rick's gone, he's out gathering supplies for the Saviors, for when they come back. This pleases Negan, he's happy about this. He asks Carl to give him a tour of Alexandria, so Carl ends up showing him his house. He wants to go into one room, and Carl's like, oh, don't worry about that one, that's just the laundry room. That's where Judith is. So Negan has now met Judith. He sees Judith, picks her up, and he's very gentle, very delicate with this little baby. He's very, 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 very gentle with her, and he seems to, really like Olivia, or Judith. Let's see what happens after that. Focus on Rick and Aaron. They end up stumbling across something. There's a big sign that, they see this sign that just says, I've got a lot of supplies, I've got a lot of weapons. If you haven't been shot yet, it's because I'm already dead. So then they're like, oh wow, well, we made it this far and we need a lot of stuff, so we kind of need to see where this goes. So they go out to investigate further. Spencer ends up reuniting with Rosita and Eugene. He ends up showing them that he did find some stuff from the map
from the dude that came out of the tree. So yeah, he's got some stuff to give to the Saviors. Everybody is working towards that, and that's pretty much where it ends. It ends with like Negan's just kind of sitting out on the porch with Judith and Carl, who still has not been allowed to put the bandages back on yet. And that's kind of where everything ends up. So there's one more episode left for this first half of the season. A lot of shows end up doing this where they do kind of half the season, then they take a couple of months off. So yeah, we got one more Walking Dead episode. And that'll be it for, gosh, I think they're off until like mid-February or something like that, so I'll have to come up with some other stuff to talk about. As always, thank you very much for watching this. Please click the like button, subscribe if you have not, and I will see you guys later. Bye.